During a tense Senate Judiciary Committee hearing, Senator Dick Durbin confronted a Trump Justice Department nominee about crime, corruption, and integrity, raising serious questions about how politics and prosecution have become dangerously intertwined under this administration.
Do you think you need the National Guard to fight crime in Shreveport, Louisiana?
I don't think we need them, but I think they would be welcome. I think that the chief of police would welcome them. Chief Smith, I believe, would welcome their help. And I think that whatever resources could be brought to bear to reduce crime in Shreveport would be helpful.
Mr. Duva, it was a pleasure to meet you in my office. I had never met you before, and you did well. You made, I thought, a convincing, sincere presentation of your belief that the responsibility of the U.S. Attorney is unique. You acknowledged the authority of the office and the power of the office to change lives. You've been involved in a case that drew national attention on public corruption, and we talked about that for some period of time. The Penn section of the Department of Justice, which is part of your division, if you are confirmed, has been reduced in number from 30 to 2, and the 2 are literally novice political appointees. I was heartened to hear you believe that the Penn plays an important role in making decisions involving prosecution of public corruption. There's a longstanding requirement that prosecution of public officials be reviewed by Penn's career prosecutors to ensure that they are not politically motivated. Attorney General Bondi has reportedly eliminated this requirement. When we met, you told me you thought Penn played an important role in the process. Do you agree that Penn prosecutors should review the prosecution of public officials?
Thank you for the question, Ranking Member Durbin, and I enjoyed our 25 minutes in your office on Monday. I appreciate your time, and I thought we had a great and honest discussion. To answer your question about Penn, I've worked with Penn in multiple cases. I tried a case against a former member of Congress in 2017 with Penn, and it was a very good partnership. What I will do if I'm confirmed by the Senate is have a discussion with the Deputy Attorney General about repurposing Penn and figure out how to, if there's a lane, to build up that section and make it a more robust section than it is. I'm aware of the news. I wasn't involved in any of those decisions of it going from 30 lawyers to 2 lawyers. I understand some of those lawyers are detailed in other portions of the criminal division. But I think from my own experience, which is a specialty of mine, that public corruption prosecutions have an absolute place, both in the U.S. Attorney's offices and the criminal division. And I will have discussions with Deputy Attorney General Blanche because I believe the criminal division should have a footprint in those prosecutions and evaluating cases at the national level.
We've seen reports of the indictments against former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. Many of them were hastily brought by Lindsay Halligan, a Trump loyalist installed as the interim U.S. Attorney when other prosecutors balked or were removed. I said to my staff how impressive our meeting was, and they said, what will he do when he gets the Comey call? What will he do as an 18-year veteran of the U.S. Attorney's Office when a political figure in this administration says, this is what I want you to do, prosecute this person, whether it's a member of Congress or someone who wronged the president in years gone by? You said you've done the job the right way for 18 years, and I have no reason to believe you have not. The question is whether or not you're going to stand by that when you're faced with that moment. It could be a call from the White House. It could be a call from the Department of Justice. It could be a tweet by the President of the United States instructing you to prosecute an individual that you know there's no evidence against. So let me ask you, Mr. Duva, what will you do?
I will stand by. When I was sworn as an AUSA, I took an oath, and I take it seriously, and I bring it before this committee today. Those cases are not being handled by the criminal division. They're being handled by another U.S. Attorney's Office, the Eastern District of Virginia. I really don't know much about them other than what I've read about them, so I cannot comment specifically on those cases, and I've never met Ms. Halligan. But what I can tell you, Senator, and what I told you in your office, is that I will always do one thing, and that is apply the facts to the law in any case, whether it's a public corruption case, a transnational drug case, or anything of that nature, because that's what you're sworn to do, and that is the only path for a prosecutor. And as I mentioned in my opening statement, all we have is our integrity, and if I get a call or a referral, the case will go to a line attorney in the public integrity section or whatever section it is, and it will be worked up properly by properly using the grand jury, and we will investigate a case and make a charging decision based on the Justice Manual and the ethics of my office.
Mr. Van Hook, you've been acting U.S. Attorney in the Western District of Louisiana. I'm sure you're aware of the crime rate in Shreveport, Louisiana. What you may not know is the latest status shows that Shreveport has a higher murder rate than the city of Chicago. Is violent crime a problem in Shreveport?
Senator, violent crime is a problem anywhere, and in any murder, having one victim of a murder is one too many. And as being in leadership in the United States Attorney's Office in Shreveport, I've worked very hard with our state, local, federal law enforcement partners to do our best to help bring down the crime rate. We've worked with the district attorney there, the police chief. We've formed a collaborative partnership. You know, unlike a lot of places in this world today, we all get along there, and we've all worked very hard together to try to reduce crime.
Do you think you need the National Guard to fight crime in Shreveport, Louisiana?
I don't think we need them, but I think they would be welcome. I think that the chief of police would welcome them. Chief Smith, I believe, would welcome their help. And I think that whatever resources could be brought to bear to reduce crime in Shreveport would be helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What you just watched in that exchange between Senator Dick Durbin and the Trump nominee is one of those small procedural moments that actually tells you a huge amount about the health of American government. It reads like a local crime question on the surface. Does Shreveport have a serious violence problem? But the conversation is really about two much larger interconnected things: whether our Department of Justice still operates by impartial rules, and whether our national response to crime treats people and places as problems to be punished or communities to be healed. Durbin begins where any responsible overseer must begin, with institutions. He points to the Public Integrity Section, the unit that historically stood as a kind of firewall between politics and prosecution, and notes that it has been effectively hollowed out. That is not a minor organizational quibble. PIN is where experienced, nonpartisan prosecutors analyze allegations against public officials, decide whether there is evidence worthy of charges, and ensure that high-stakes decisions are not made on a whim or for political advantage. Reduce that expertise from dozens of prosecutors to a handful of novices, and you don't just lose capacity, you lose the checks on abuse that make democratic government possible. So when Durbin asks the nominee what he will do when he gets the Comey call, or when he's confronted by political pressure to bring a case that doesn't fit the evidence, he's not testing a hypothetical. He's pressing on the single hinge that determines whether prosecutions are driven by law or by loyalty. The nominee answers in the scrupulous language every good prosecutor uses: apply the facts to the law. But the real question is how that rule plays out inside a system whose guardrails are being weakened. At the same time, Durbin shifts to Shreveport. The sensational line, that Shreveport's murder rate is higher than Chicago's, is important because it punctures a familiar political narrative, that crime is only an urban, democratic city problem. Durbin is shrewd here. He's reminding us that violence is everywhere, and that political talking points hide the real work: understanding causes and designing effective responses. Shreveport's spike in homicides is not an indictment of ideology. It's a local crisis that demands coordinated federal, state, and local investment, better community policing strategies, targeted interventions for at-risk youth, investment in mental health and substance abuse treatment, job programs, and perhaps meaningful gun violence prevention measures. The two threads belong together. If the Justice Department becomes politicized, it's less capable of supporting those local partnerships that actually reduce crime. Career prosecutors who once focused on building cases against violent networks, corrupt officials, and organized crime may be retasked, intimidated, or pushed out if the leadership values loyalty over expertise. When that happens, communities like Shreveport lose federal partners just when they need them most. There are practical, constructive reforms that follow directly from Durbin's line of questioning. First, restore and fully staff the Public Integrity Section so politically sensitive prosecutions are vetted by experienced, nonpartisan professionals. Second, legislate clearer protections for career prosecutors, from limits on sudden reassignments to transparent standards for any termination, so that career service is not punished for doing the job objectively. Third, create statutory constraints on White House involvement in specific charging decisions. The president should have broad policy authority, but the mechanics of how charges are pursued should be insulated from political direction. Fourth, invest in proven, evidence-based violence reduction programs so that cities like Shreveport have the resources to do more than react. There's also a less tangible but equally critical point about culture. Institutions depend on norms as much as on rules. When leaders consistently reward independence and clarity, when they make transparent decisions and explain them in court filings and public reports, career lawyers will stay and the DOJ's competence will grow. When leaders encourage opaque shortcuts or answer political pressure with secrecy, the best people leave. That brain drain takes years to reverse. For viewers who want to understand what is literally at stake here, prosecutions are not just spectacles. They are the mechanism through which we enforce fraud laws, police corruption statutes, human trafficking statutes, and the laws that dismantle dangerous drug networks. Lose confidence in that mechanism, and you lose both the ability to punish wrongdoing and the public trust that punishment is applied fairly. This is not partisan theater. It's institutional triage. Senator Durbin's questions are the sort that should make every citizen pause and ask whether their institutions are designed to protect the public interest or political advantage. If you care about safer communities, you should care about an independent DOJ. They are two sides of the same coin. If this discussion matters to you, then don't treat it like another headline. Ask your senator and representative what they are doing to restore independent public integrity resources, to protect career prosecutors, and to fund evidence-based violence reduction programs in hard-hit communities. Read the Justice Manual. Ask for transparency about personnel changes in your U.S. attorney's offices. Support reporters and watchdog groups who dig into these institutional changes. Democracy depends on people paying attention to the procedural, not just the dramatic. If you found this helpful, subscribe for more deep explainers. Share this video with someone who thinks it's just Washington, because what happens inside those committee rooms shows up in your hometown, in funding decisions, in prosecutions, and ultimately in community safety. Leave a comment. Which reform would you prioritize to protect both justice and public safety?